Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're going to be exploring something pretty interesting, I think.
Oh, yeah.
It's called Safala Ekadashi,
Yes?
and it's a Hindu observance that is shrouded in some pretty fascinating stories and a lot of profound meaning.
Yeah, you know what's really cool about Safala Ekadashi is that it's something that even if you're not familiar with Hindu traditions, like you were saying,
Right.
the lessons in it kind of resonate, I think, with everybody.
Absolutely. And that's why we wanted to do a deep dive on it.
Yeah.
So let's start off for those who are maybe learning about this for the first time.
Right.
What exactly is Safala Ekadashi?
So basically, it is a holy day
Mm-hmm.
that's observed on the 11th lunar day, which is
Right.
called Ekadashi,
Okay.
of the waning moon phase,
Okay.
which is called Krishna Paksha in the Hindu month of Pascha, which falls sometime in December or January.
Okay, so we've got this specific day,
Right.
Ekadashi, and then the word Safala. So what's the meaning behind that?
Safala means successful or fruitful. So it kind of suggests that if you're observing this particular Ekadashi, it can lead to the fulfillment of desires and spiritual growth.
Interesting. So it seems like achieving something positive through some kind of spiritual practice is at the heart of this observance.
Yeah.
Now, is it connected to any specific deity?
Yeah, it's dedicated to Lord Vishnu.
Ah, Lord Vishnu. Okay, so that's a name that I think a lot of people have heard, even if they're not super familiar with Hindu mythology.
Right.
But to understand the significance of Safala Ekadashi, could you tell us just a little bit more about Lord Vishnu and his role?
Sure. Yeah. So Lord Vishnu is known as like the preserver and protector of the universe. And he has all these great qualities like benevolence and mercy and divine love.
Wow.
So you can see how connecting this specific Ekadashi to him would make it even more special for bringing about that positive change and spiritual growth.
That makes total sense. It's like the day itself is imbued with this energy of compassion and transformation because of its association with Lord Vishnu.
Exactly.
But I have a feeling that this is where the story that you mentioned earlier comes in.
Yeah,
right?
this is where it gets good.
Okay, everyone loves a good story. I'm ready to hear it.
Okay.
So tell me about it.
It revolves around this king. His name was King Maheshman,
Okay.
and his 4 sons,
Okay.
and especially his eldest son, Lumka.
Okay. King Maheshman and his son, Lumka.
Yes.
Set the scene for us. What makes Lumka's story so central to understanding Safala Ekadashi?
Lumka was kind of a wild child.
Okay.
He was known for squandering his father's wealth and engaging in all sorts of reckless and even harmful actions,
Wow.
even disrespecting deities and holy figures.
So he was kind of a handful.
Yeah, definitely.
I can only imagine what his father was going through.
Yeah, it was a lot of heartache for him.
Right.
And eventually, Lumka's actions got to be so bad that the king had no choice but to banish him from the kingdom.
Banishment. Wow, that's serious.
Yeah. Did that make him reconsider his choices at all?
Sadly, it did not.
Okay.
Instead of turning his life around, he just went deeper down this path of negativity.
Uh-oh.
He resorted to a life of theft and violence,
Maybe.
causing, fear and hardship all over the kingdom.
So at this point, he's gone from like rebellious prince to straight up outlaw.
Exactly.
It doesn't really sound like the kind of guy who is on the verge of spiritual redemption.
Right.
This is why I'm guessing that this is where the story takes a turn.
You got it.
Okay.
So in his desperation, Lumka sought shelter in the forest,
Okay.
and he came upon this ancient sacred peepal tree.
Now hold on. A peepal tree, that's not just any tree, is it?
No, you're right.
Okay.
Peepal trees are very revered in Hinduism.
Okay.
They're often seen as a symbol of enlightenment and spiritual awakening.
Wow.
It's a place where the divine can manifest.
Okay, so even Limka, in his state of desperation, he must have sensed something about this tree.
All right, I'm hooked. So tell me, what happened to Lumka under this sacred peepal tree? And this was the eve of Safala Ekadashi, right?
Yes, it was. And Lumka, he was exhausted, he was cold, and he couldn't sleep.
Oh, no.
And he spent the whole next day, which was the actual day of Safala Ekadashi, searching desperately for any kind of food or sustenance.
Oh, wow.
All he could find was some really meager fruit.
Oh, wow. So he was unintentionally fasting on Safala Ekadashi.
He was.
What happened next? Did he eat the fruit?
So this is the interesting part. In a moment of surrender,
Okay.
almost out of desperation, he offered the little fruit that he had to the peepal tree.
Really?
Yeah, picture it. He's exhausted. He's hungry.
Yeah.
He probably feels lost and alone. But in that act of offering something shifts.
It's such a simple act, though.
It is. But remember, this isn't just any tree.
Right.
This is a sacred peepal tree.
Right.
And it's seen as a conduit to the divine.
Okay. Yeah.
And even though his offering came from a place of hardship, it was an act of acknowledging something greater than himself.
Yeah.
And so it's this unintentional act of devotion that happens on this particular Ekadashi, dedicated to Lord Vishnu.
Right.
And it kind of sets the stage for this amazing transformation.
Okay, this is getting good. I can't wait to hear what happens next. Okay, so last time we left off with Lumka under this sacred peepal tree, and he had just offered this meager fruit as an act of desperation and surrender.
Yeah.
And it was Safala Ekadashi, the day dedicated to Lord Vishnu, who is like the embodiment of mercy.
Right.
So what happened next? Did this unintentional act of devotion actually like reach Lord Vishnu?
It did. The story tells us that Lumka was sitting under the peepal tree, exhausted and probably full of regret.
Yeah.
When all of a sudden, this amazing horse appeared in front of him.
Whoa, hold on. A horse just like appeared?
Yeah, like out of thin air.
That's incredible. What did Lumka do?
Well, he was astonished, of course. Imagine seeing this magnificent creature just materialize in front of you.
Yeah.
But before he could even really process what was happening, something even more extraordinary happened.
Okay, now I'm really on the edge of my seat. Tell me.
A voice boomed from the heavens, and it was filled with this authority and compassion.
Wow.
And it said that Lumka's sins had been forgiven by Lord Vishnu.
Wow. Talk about divine intervention, but I have to ask, why? Just because he fasted and offered some fruit to a tree, what made this simple act so powerful?
It's deeper than just the actions.
Yeah.
Remember, this is Safala Ekadashi.
Right.
And this is a day when spiritual practices are believed to be very potent.
Right.
And this particular Ekadashi is dedicated to Lord Vishnu, who is like the embodiment of forgiveness and mercy.
Right.
So Lumka's unintentional fast
Yeah.
and this act of surrender under this sacred tree created this perfect situation for grace to come into his life.
It's like it wasn't just about the fasting or the offering. It was about the state of his heart in that moment.
Exactly.
It seems like he was finally open to receiving this grace, even if it wasn't something that he was intentionally seeking out.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah. So this story really does illustrate the power of Ekadashi and the compassion of Lord Vishnu. It shows that even when we're not at our best,
Right.
even when our actions are driven by desperation rather than pure devotion, sincere acts of surrender, they can still open us up to transformation.
Absolutely.
That is such a hopeful and powerful message. But what happened to Lumka after this incredibly life-changing experience? Did he just go back to his old ways?
No, not at all. My heavenly voice. It didn't just offer forgiveness. It also gave him like a second chance.
Really?
A new path.
Yeah.
It instructed Lumka to return home to his father and rule the kingdom.
Oh, wow.
But this time, he would be guided by his newfound devotion to Lord Vishnu.
Wow. So from banished outlaw to, a ruler who is entrusted with leading his people.
I know, it's incredible.
What a transformation.
Right.
But you mentioned earlier that the benefits of Safala Ekadashi extend beyond Lumka's story.
Yeah.
So what are some of the broader beliefs about how observing this day can impact people's lives?
All right, so Lumka's story really kind of serves as a vivid example of the potential for change. But the belief in the power of Safala Ekadashi goes much deeper than that.
Okay.
Many believe that observing this Ekadashi can bring a multitude of benefits.
Okay.
Both spiritual and worldly.
Okay.
It's said to purify one's past transgressions.
Wow.
And it can accelerate spiritual progress.
Okay.
Help fulfill righteous desires.
Interesting.
And ultimately, it can lead to liberation or moksha, which is like the ultimate goal in Hinduism.
Liberation or moksha, that sounds really profound. Can you maybe explain that a little bit in the context of Hinduism?
Sure. So moksha is a pretty complex concept.
Okay.
But basically, it refers to this liberation from the cycle of birth and death.
Wow.
And the endless cycle of suffering that's inherent in the material world.
Right.
It's about reaching enlightenment, this unity with the divine.
Okay.
And observing Safala Ekadashi with all of its focus on, devotion and self-discipline and connection to Lord Vishnu, it's seen as a really powerful step on that path.
Wow. So even if we haven't lived a life quite as dramatic as Lumka's observing Safala Ekadashi, can still have a really powerful impact on our spiritual journey.
That's the belief.
That's amazing.
It's seen as an opportunity to cleanse ourselves of any negativity, both physically and mentally.
Right.
And it's a time to connect with the divine and to set intentions for positive growth in all areas of our lives.
So it's not just about the religious aspect.
Right.
It's about taking a step back from our everyday lives and reflecting
Exactly.
and realigning ourselves with our values and aspirations.
Absolutely.
So practically speaking, what does observing Safala Ekadashi involve? What are the actual practices?
That is a great question. And that is actually something that we can discuss in more detail next time. We'll delve into those specific practices and rituals associated with this Ekadashi.
Perfect.
And how they can help you tap into its transformative potential.
I love it. All right, so we've explored, the story of Lumka and kind of the significance of Safala Ekadashi.
Right.
But let's get practical. Like, if someone wanted to observe this Ekadashi,
Yeah.
what would that actually look like? What are the key practices involved?
So observing Safala Ekadashi, it's a lot like many Hindu observances.
Okay.
It involves both like physical and spiritual practices.
Right.
It's about aligning ourselves with these divine qualities.
Okay. Okay.
Compassion, forgiveness, love.
Those things that Lord Vishnu embodies.
Exactly.
So it's a holistic practice.
Yeah.
It's not just about going through the motions. It's about inner transformation as well.
Right.
But where do we start? Like, what's the most important element of observing this Ekadashi?
Well, the most significant aspect is fasting.
Okay.
And that usually means abstaining from all grains and beans.
Right.
Some people will do a complete fast, only consuming water or fruits.
Okay. Fasting, that makes sense, especially given that Limka's unintentional fast played such a pivotal role.
Right.
But it's more than just about the food, right? What's the deeper significance?
Yeah, you're right. It's about detaching from like worldly desires and focusing on spiritual growth.
Okay.
It's a way to cleanse your body and mind.
Right.
And create that space for inner reflection and connecting with the divine.
It's like hitting the reset button, giving ourselves a chance to really reconnect with what matters.
Exactly.
So fasting is kind of like that inward turn. But what about engaging with the divine? Are there devotional practices associated with Safala Ekadashi?
Absolutely. Devotional practices are key.
Okay.
That might be things like chanting mantras that are dedicated to Lord Vishnu.
Okay.
Reading scriptures like the Vishnu Sahasranama.
Right.
Or even visiting a temple.
Okay, so it's about actively nurturing that connection with Lord Vishnu through things like prayer and meditation and rituals.
Right.
Are there any specific rituals or offerings that are unique to this Ekadashi?
One traditional practice specific to Safala Ekadashi is offering tulsi leaves to Lord Vishnu.
Okay.
Tulsi is also known as holy basil.
Right.
It's considered very sacred in Hinduism. And offering it to Vishnu on this day is believed to enhance the spiritual benefits of the fast.
So even the type of offering has meaning behind it?
Yes, definitely.
Okay, is there anything else that people typically do to observe Safala Ekadashi?
Many people also engage in acts of charity and kindness on this day.
Oh, wow.
It's seen as a way to extend that positive energy outward, benefiting not just themselves, but other people.
I love that practice.
Yeah.
It really speaks to the idea that spiritual growth isn't just an inward journey.
Right.
It's about radiating that positivity and compassion out into the world.
Exactly.
It's about aligning ourselves with those qualities that Lord Vishnu represents: compassion, forgiveness, that boundless love.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that transformation is always possible, within ourselves and in the way that we interact with everyone around us.
Absolutely.
This has been such an amazing deep dive. I feel like we've covered so much ground.
We have.
From Lumka's story all the way to, practicalities of observing Safala Ekadashi. As we wrap up, what stands out to you most?
I think for me, it's that reminder that even unintentional acts of devotion,
Right.
when they're performed with a sincere heart, they can open us up to such amazing transformation.
I love that.
Lumka's story is like the perfect illustration of that.
Yes.
That grace can flow into our lives when we least expect it.
It really is the perfect example of Safala Ekadashi, like creating the conditions for success.
Right.
Not just spiritual, but worldly, by aligning ourselves with the divine.
That's it.
And it's not about being perfect. It's about being open to growth and change and the possibility of redemption.
I love that.
Well, if an accidental fast can lead to that kind of shift,
Right.
imagine the potential of a dedicated observance.
That's incredible to think about.
And, could reflecting on this story inspire acts of devotion?
Yeah.
Maybe large or small in your own life?
I hope so.
It's definitely something to think about as you continue your exploration of Safala Ekadashi and its meaning. Thanks for joining us, everyone, on this deep dive.